Hello, and welcome to this presentation from the Social Selling Agency about podcasting. How to be a podcast guest, tips for finding and landing guest spots. So, being a podcast guest has become an increasingly effective way to build your personal or company brand. If you're looking for opportunities to join podcasts as a guest or an interviewee, in this presentation, I'm going to give you tips to help you find the right podcasts, how to connect with hosts, and how to prepare for episode interviews and conversations. A podcast is an excellent platform to spread your message and gain followers for your business. Many podcast hosts are inundated with requests to be on their shows. So, how do you break through and make the host want to speak with you? We're going to talk about expanding your sphere of influence with podcast guesting. You're going to be able to build your credibility, generate more conversations that result in more opportunities, how you can engage with the influencers that have the podcasts, and how you can boost awareness about your brand. Let's get into it. A little bit about me. Who's this woman behind the microphone? My name is Kathryn Nunez, and I'm the founder of the Social Selling Agency. I'm a LinkedIn marketing expert and a top visibility thought leader. As an authority on sales, I have built a rapid following of over 30,000 professionals, and I have been on multiple podcasts. I'm also the host of The Art of Inspired Selling. You can catch me on YouTube or any of your favorite streaming platforms. So let's talk about some statistics for 2022. 70%, the number 70% of the American population knows about at least one podcast. 20.3%. Wow, it's been projected by Insider Intelligence that by 2022, podcast listeners will account for 20.3% of all internet users. Man, that translates into 424.2 million listeners across the world. So if you are not ready to take advantage of that audience, why don't you give me a call and tell me what you're doing to get in front of your target market that's working for you? So who can benefit from podcasting? Or, in our case, we're talking about guest podcasting. Well, celebrities and influencers. As a celebrity or an influencer, you can build a fan base and an engaged community as you forward genuine connections via podcast interviews. Experts, you can share your expertise with the world through deeply engaging long form podcast interviews. For example, on my live show, the experts that I bring on the show talk for about an hour. Imagine getting your subject matter expertise in front of your target market where they listen and stay engaged for an hour. Brands, we're talking about businesses. Promote your brand or business with the ultimate earned media via one-on-one time with your audience. It's earned, it's not paid. Thought leaders, which is what we grow at the Social Selling Agency. Get your thought leaders booked on podcasts where they can build an authority and engaged audiences. Talent agencies. Send your clients on a podcast tour, sure to generate buzz with highly targeted audiences. Publicists, which we also work with, maximize your talent exposure by tapping into the power of podcast interviews with podcast interviews. At other agencies, podcast guest interviews are your secret weapon for raising awareness for brands and product launches. The ROI is off the charts. Authors, authors tend to work so hard. It can be so costly to write their books. And sometimes they end up as their favorite coaster for their favorite coffee cup. So come on, authors, we need to get you out there. Promote upcoming publications via podcast guest appearance tours, and engage with your target audience during the long form interviews. So, how do you know what podcasts are best for your brand? Well, you want to look for podcasts with audiences that are interested in what you have to offer. The more closely your expertise matches the needs of the audience, the more you'll resonate with them. Some simple ways to find podcasts that match your brand include checking out podcasts in your industry. Now, you want to make sure these podcasts are appealing to the audiences that are interested in your offer. So here's a list of different ways you can look up podcasts. There's podcast directories, there's podcastchaser.com. You can do a search on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and TuneIn. And of course, one of the whole reasons we made this presentation was so you know we are experts in being able to build a podcast repository that is in the target market that you're looking for. So you can tap into us to do all this work for you. You know, one thing that I also want to mention is there's matchmaking services. We're not talking about the love kind here. You could use a matchmaking service if you're having trouble identifying the right podcast for guesting opportunities. There's several matchmaking services that are out there. You can just Google podcast matchmaker services. But some that I have already found for you would be Matchmaker, Podmatch, and podcastguests.com. There's also services, if you Google them, there's coaches and consultants that will teach you how to be a really good guest, how to get your bio ready. It's a whole market. So let me know if you need support in finding someone besides us. Okay, so now we've built your database of perfect podcasts that has an audience that matches the offer that you have. You can deliver relevant information. And so now, what benefit or value are you going to provide to the listeners? What's your unique angle? So here's some questions for you to think about. What value do you bring to the show? What new insights or information can you provide? Do you have experience or expertise that's unlike that of previous guests? And are you an authority on a particular topic that's of interest to the podcast host? You know, there's some Facebook groups out there as well where there's about 4,000 to 5,000 podcasters always looking for guests. I encourage you to search for those Facebook pages and give it a go on your own. If you need support from us, we can also pitch you to those podcast hosts because I have relationships with a lot of them. So your podcast pitch, what's that going to look like? Well, you're going to want to prove that you provide value to the host in the podcast. Consider how your offer aligns with the host's vision and clearly communicate that connection. Think about what the host has talked about in the past because you've obviously gone to listen to some of their podcasts before you pitch them and how you can improve upon it or expand the conversation. Use your pitch to convince the host that there's something, whether it's authority, knowledge, experience, or stories about a particular topic that only you can bring to the show. I have a template for you. If you reach out to us, I can send you a template that includes the best performing email template that you can use to reach out to your target podcasts. It's also a service that we can provide once we write the email and begin the outreach campaign with you. Okay, so now how are you going to outreach to potential shows? Well, your number one task is to build that list of podcasts that correspond to both your business and your target audience. Assess what podcasts are trendy by simply typing your industry plus podcast on a Google search. You can also go directly to the platforms that I listed. You can enter your keywords in the search bar, and that will help you with results. You can listen to Notes, which is a podcast search engine that will suggest podcasts according to specific keywords you enter. After you've reached out to your guest, you need to respond in a timely manner when they respond back to you. I've missed opportunities because that email came in so quickly, or the message on LinkedIn or the message on Facebook, and I did not respond in a timely manner. So if you become overwhelmed, I implore you to get a virtual assistant or someone that can help you, because once you start running these campaigns, the response is really overwhelming, because that's how podcasts are successful, is by finding subject matter experts. So that's what they're always looking for, is content, and they book months in advance. Sometimes they might have a cancellation, but they have at least a, gosh, I have a 6 month guest list already planned out. So you are going to want to get started on this. You also need to continue to nurture those relationships. Make sure they know what you're doing. Make sure that they see that you really are a subject matter expert. And then I would like you to connect with hosts on LinkedIn and other social networks, so that they can stay top of mind with you, and you can stay top of mind with them. Okay, so let's assume that you have interest and you're booking your first podcast, your first guesting. What do you need to do? Well, you need to know your audience, and you need to get ready and tailor your message to match the podcast's audience. Are they listening to the podcast for comedic value? Do they hope to learn valuable information? Are they looking for a new product or service to meet their needs? The more you understand the podcast listeners and their motivations, the better you can speak in a way that engages them. Check the podcast reviews on social media to see what fans enjoy about the show, and then go deep on that, right? The data and the statistics are there for you to review. Right, now let's talk about doing your homework for the show. The better prepared you enter a podcast recording, the more comfortable you'll feel and the more polished you'll appear. I'm telling you, I do this. I schedule in advance before I'm going to be on a podcast to do all my homework, to get I even make a presentation because I want to be prepared. I'm one of those people. I prepare 40 hours for a 5-minute talk. I'm good on my feet, but I really want to be able to do a dance and go sideways if I need to with the guest. So scope out the podcast social media, the website beforehand to see what they're interested in and talking about. If the host sends you questions, which sometimes they do, or an outline ahead of time, put some serious thought into how you're going to respond, because you're going to be able to create your talk around the offer that you're currently offering. So let's say that you have your marketing plan scheduled out for 12 months, and you know that next month you're launching something. Try to get on podcasts leading up to that launch to talk about your value that you're going to bring to people, and then you can relate the two. A little note about being nervous: write down some talking points and bring them to the recording. Um, like I said, just prepare. So listen to previous podcast episodes. Listen to at least 2 or 3 of the podcast's most recent episodes to get a sense of the podcast format, how the host operates, the type of questions they ask, how long the interview will be, and more. Nobody really wants to be surprised. They may have these questions that stump the chump, if you will. So be ready for those. Um, they ask similar questions sometimes, either at the beginning or at the end. Just be aware, it will help you prepare your answers. If you can, organically reference a recent episode during your appearance. You'll likely surprise and thrill the host with your preparedness and interest in their show. Offering talking points. A good podcast host will conduct research and have talking posts and an outline prepared coming into the episode. If you want, you can help them out by suggesting certain things you think the audience might find interesting or tidbits they might know about you. And I have that. People ask, you know, uh, a lot of times they ask, what I'd like to talk about, what subjects I talk about, and we have a meeting of the minds to come up with something that they are looking for their audience. I do that same thing for my show. If there's a hole that needs to be filled, that my subject expertise has a gap, I look for the subject matter expert that can fill in that gap so that my audience can continue learning, and they'll look at me as a resource, and they'll know that when they listen to my show, I'm always bringing something of value to them. All right. Invest in quality equipment. So you saw in my picture earlier, I have invested in a Yeti blue microphone. I have the filter. I have a total habit now of always talking with headphones in so that I can hear myself when I'm recording, to try to avoid noise. I close windows. Neighbors know when I'm recording. I usually hang a podcast sign on my front door. My dog doesn't really make noises, but when we were in the pandemic, we couldn't control some of those situations. But it's always good to make sure that you're recording in a high quality sound. A lot of people can reposition your content. So it's good to also make sure you have a nice camera, because they could be ripping out the video and the audio separately. So that's something really to keep in mind. Make sure your lighting is great and that your background doesn't look messy. I've also seen kitchens and people walking through. You know, we all give grace now in this, now that we've been through the pandemic, but bringing your best self and your best environment is representative of your brand. You can look up podcast microphones if you need other equipment. Um, there's equipment lists everywhere. So always make sure to do a test run as well before the interview. I've had people get ready to come on to my live show. Now it's different for a live show. They might have a live podcast, but you don't want to have your kids or a husband or somebody use your equipment beforehand and you can't connect or hear them or hear you. Always show up early too, so you can have that time to prepare. All right, bring your personality. How boring is it to find somebody that you're listening to that doesn't have intonation in their voice, or they're not exciting? I mean, that's like watching a TV with a monotone, right? I mean, how boring is our congressional hearings and things? This is entertainment. This is media. Don't be afraid to be you. Podcasting is about speaking your authentic voice. And when I say that, it might sound cliche, but don't show up who you are. If you are a podcaster, or if you're coming on as a personal brand and you're an employee, make sure that you do put, my opinions are not of that of my company, because a personal brand as an employee and the brand of the company, you know, you don't want to say something that might get your brand, your employer in trouble. Because my brand and my agency are the same, I'm truly authentic. If I want to call something out, I do that. I would encourage you. The world needs more authenticity, and that's part of building your personal brand. And that's what we're doing, right? We're creating a visibility strategy with guest podcasting. It's a chance for brand awareness, and you want to introduce your listeners to the real you. I have successfully not cried on my interviews, but I have some upcoming one where we're going to talk about death and how I deal with that. And those are touchy subjects, but showing vulnerability allows people to connect emotionally with you. It's not a staged event, it's a natural thing. So to know, like, and trust you, they need to see that vulnerable side as well. All right, prepare a call to action. Now, I'm also a speaker and I'm asked to speak a lot for free. People don't pay me to be on their podcast. I don't charge anyone to be on my live show. But you do need to be prepared with a call to action of where are you sending people after the talk. As guests wrap their shows, they'll say, so Kathryn, how can people get in touch with you? Have an easy way to get in touch with you. I send everybody to LinkedIn because LinkedIn is my container, or I can say go to my website. It's all the same, KathrynEvans.net, Kathryn E. Nunez. Um, Make it easy for people to find you. If you have a nice lead magnet and you're sending people to a lead magnet because you have a nice funnel built, then send them there. Make sure that somehow you're going to capture that audience and get email addresses. That where you need to build your audience because as we know, social platforms could disappear tomorrow and you need to be able to capture your audience and build your own lead list. So the host also in the show notes will promote your website, your social media handles. Make sure that you're ready with your bios. Now, this is something that we didn't cover about how to prepare for being a podcast guest. And if you stay and follow the Social Selling Agency or KathrynEvans.net, I have a workshop that's going to prepare you to have an online press kit. And we're going to walk you through how to build your bio, how to build your the press that you need, the short bio, the long bio, how to get in front of journalists. Have all of that ready. I've had people send me like a 3-page bio. That's not going to work because people are going to get lost very quickly if the host has to read this 300-word bio. So please be ready for that. All right. The last thing is we're going to talk about marketing your episode. So in my master marketing strategy, I try to only do one podcast or live show or speak a week because I want to be able to market that show. Or if when you wrap the podcast, they'll tell you when the episode is going to air. I encourage you to put that in your marketing strategy, but you can start to build the digital assets that you're going to need if the team has that. So ask your host those questions. Are you going to provide the digital assets? Are you going to write any of the show promos? Are you going to send me any content so that I can do some email marketing? You want to help the host. You want to be a good guest. You want to help promote the show. I was on a show called Chasing something. I have to look it up now, but it was the host was so awesome that his syndication of the show helped me fill up half of the next page on the Google search. So these things are really important when you're building your digital footprint on Google. All right. So the other thing, do not be afraid to say no. If somebody approaches you, let me just set your goals of how you're going to use this podcast and how many listeners. If you're just starting out and you want to practice on a podcast that doesn't have as many followers, that's fine. But as you start to articulate your value proposition, articulate your offer, be really good on camera or on microphone, you get to make the choices of what levels these podcasts are at. You never know how they're going to rise. But if you want to shoot for people with a large audience, middle audience, and then practice audience, that's okay. But if somebody comes to you and they have zero following and zero listenership, you could get really caught up in busy work. So make sure that you're being strategic about the episodes that you're going to be on. And if it's not going to have an audience that's going to benefit you, then don't be afraid to say no. All right. I have a bonus for you. This is the 6-step outreach plan. It's a timeline for a successful introduction. So, how would you go about engaging with a host? Since I already mentioned that LinkedIn is my container, I start with LinkedIn. Well, actually, I start with LinkedIn and now Facebook. So, um, if you've already found, Facebook is a quick close. Let me just say that. But if you're strategically doing outbound, um, you can do a search on LinkedIn. Let's say even you already hired the social selling agency to send a list to you, and you have the list of the podcasts that you're going to do your research on. So, one of the steps to start doing your research is visiting the LinkedIn profile of the host. Now, why is that important? Because when you visit a LinkedIn profile, the host can see that you've been there. So that is the first touch point that they see that you are interested in who they are. Then you can send email number 1. And I mentioned that I do have a template for you. All you have to do is reach out. I have a template. So then you're going to message them on LinkedIn. We also can provide a template for that. But remember, you're not throwing up all over them. You're going to look at their profile. You're going to compliment them on something. You're going to find something that you're like-minded in, and you're going to mention that in your connection message. Okay. Now you're going to go back and you're going to visit number 2, the second time, the LinkedIn profile of the host. Now, I don't have this on here. This is outreach, but at the same time, I want you to go to the LinkedIn profile. I want you to look at the activity of the podcast host, and I want you to engage with their content. They need to know who you are. So, number 1, you have looked at their LinkedIn profile. That's touch point number 1. Number 2, you sent them an email. Number 3, you messaged them on LinkedIn. Number 4, you looked at their profile again. Number 5, you're engaging with their content. Number 6, you're going to send them an email number 2, which is a follow-up email. You're just going to send a follow-up with no new subject line so they can appear in the same thread. And number 3, you're going to visit their LinkedIn profile of the host for the last time. So if they're not responding to you, you could put them if you want on a nurture campaign. But there's millions of podcasts, so we can put them aside and you could step over to the next person that you have on the list. All right. So that was a long presentation. I hope you found it very beneficial and valuable. So at the social selling agency, our services include everything on this list. List building, email validations after we build the list. It depends on what headers that you have. My team does a lot of real estate. A lot of we build tons of lists. The guys that I have building lists were building lists before they started working with me at my agency. LinkedIn profile optimizations, that's part of the expertise that I do. Video editing, we do not only video editing, we do animation, we do content repurposing, because 20% of the time you're building content, 80% of the time you're repurposing it. LinkedIn marketing strategy, I just gave you a free LinkedIn marketing strategy. How do you like that? LinkedIn Sales Navigator training, YouTube channel setup, social media bio writing and setup, in cards, thumbnails, custom media, social graphics, Eventbrite, event setup and emails. This is one of our specialties. If you have an upcoming webinar, I'll coach you through the webinar. I'll coach you through the sales process. I'll help you with your slide setup, LinkedIn event marketing. Also, something we're specialists in, landing pages. We have teams that do that. I have I have a copywriter that will help that landing page convert. We do some marketing automation. We specialize in WordPress and active campaign automation, but we can do anything with Zapier and Integromat. Email writing, conversion copywriting, and sales and marketing funnel strategy overview. The whole team gets together and we get involved on that strategy. Just some of the things that we have listed, and all of those are on Upwork. All right, find us on social media. You can see everything here. And if you want to get in touch with us or send us a card, we're here. We get gifts in the mail all the time. Thank you so much for tuning in to this session of guest podcasting. We look forward to working with you. We look forward to supporting you, and we look forward to you becoming our client.